everybody. Welcome once again to another All the WrestleManias, the podcast. I'm your co-host, Tim Hackman.
And I'm your co-host, Rich Sigwald.
We're thrilled, as always, to be back in the studio with you today. We got a very exciting show to talk about. We got Starrcade 85, The Gathering from 1985. It's the third of the Starrcade events, I guess you want to call them. They're not pay-per-views, which Rich will chat a little bit about. So we found this one. We were looking for a Starrcade to watch, and we did some Googling on like greatest Starrcade matches ever, and there's one on this card that popped up more than a few times, so we thought it would be a good one to watch. And I don't think the internet was wrong.
No, and also I thought this was a good one to watch just because we had just done WrestleMania 1, which was the same year as this Starrcade, just a few months later, and it's a great spot to compare where WWF was to like everyone else.
Yeah, it's a contrast in styles and production for sure, and just a whole different tone to a wrestling show compared to that WrestleMania. So I'm glad we got a chance to watch it. Let me give you the details on this one. This is, of course, of an NWA Jim Crockett Promotions production from November 28th, 1985. This one was held at two different venues, the Greensboro Coliseum Complex in Greensboro, North Carolina, and the Omni Coliseum in Atlanta, Georgia. So sort of like WrestleMania 2, which would come up the following year. We've got two shows going on. The way this is presented on the Peacock anyway is that the matches go back and forth between those two venues. I'm not sure how the people at the time experienced it, if they would have been like watching their whole card and then able to watch the whole second card, or if they were just recorded and mashed together later. Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty certain that it went back and forth at the time, just because the way the Wikipedia also lists out the card. Though the other thing, though, was that the commentating, like the calling of the matches by Tony Schiavone and Bob Caudle, I don't know. They felt a little like they were recorded post. So I'm not exactly sure what is happening there because, I mean, you don't see any commentators ringside during this match, I don't think. There's questions about how the production is, and we can talk a little bit more about the production, especially in comparison to WrestleMania 1, which compared to this looks like a diamond that has been cut and polished and shines like it's the Hope Diamond compared to this gritty, nasty, like piece of parking lot gravel that this show is.
It's Desperado versus El Mariachi, if you're into Robert Rodriguez movies. It's completely different experience.
Nothing to take away from the matches in this show or in WrestleMania. Both of them have solid cards, and every match is pretty damn good. This event, though, the ring looks like it was built in 1920. Both of them. They're both stained with old blood from previous matches. So like they couldn't even buy like a new ring mat for these two locations to put this show on. The house lights are out, and like it just everything looks very dim. It looks smoky. The camera work is very unsteady, especially at the beginning. Like the camera just comes in and they're showing Bob Caudle and Tony Schiavone talking to the camera, and the cameraman, I don't know if he might have had Parkinson's at the time or just too much caffeine that day. It is shaking all over the place. And then we get this recording of the national anthem while the camera shakily zooms in on the American flag, and it keeps going back and forth between Greensboro and Atlanta to show the national anthem happening at both places. But at some point, lag happens, and the national anthem is playing over top of itself from the two locations in the audio.
It's the remix.
And it gets very confusing, and you're just not like, what recording of the national anthem is this? And it's actually the same recording, just like 30 seconds behind the other one. And it's very, very jarring, and the crowd gets into it though. And it's just both of these crowds are hot. Like the WrestleMania 1 crowd at Madison Square Garden was pretty hot, but it's nothing compared to what these crowds are in Greensboro and Atlanta, which honestly are huge shrines of Southern wrestling at this point. So
Yeah, they're some bloodthirsty folks. Attendance I didn't mention is 30,000 is what Wikipedia listed as combined. So I'm not sure exactly what each of those places hold, but we'll just call it 15 and 15 for lack of a more detailed available data. But
yeah, I'd
yeah,
imagine they're about the same size.
in addition to the technical stuff, the Bob Cotto and Tony Schiavone are very like awkward and nervous at first, and especially backstage interviewer Johnny Weaver. He looks like he's gonna sweat his toupee off and maybe have a heart attack, and I'm not sure what else. And it's he's about as awkward on the mic as I am. So it's it's a big deal to them obviously, and they want to get it right.
He's
but you
their
can tell
Lord Alfred Hayes. Poor, like,
looking terrified.
These two teams have opinions that are different. Let's go and hear them. Yeah,
boy, that was an excellent wrestling contest, young man.
Yeah, there's just there. So like, it's still not pay-per-view either. So this is just closed circuit television, broadcast probably to different arenas across the South. I can't imagine that this was nationwide. I don't think you could buy tickets to see this in LA or anything like that. But it probably from Richmond to Houston, you could probably go to an arena or maybe a movie theater and buy a ticket to watch this.
I would have done that. I think that would have been a good time. And so during the national anthem, there's a lot of, and throughout the show, there's a lot of shots of the crowd, and it's a perfect, beautiful time capsule. The crowds are a little bit different. In Atlanta, there's a lot of sequins and hairspray, and in Greensboro, there's a lot of like flannel, plaid shirts and stuff,
trucker hats.
Yeah, farm girl looking. It's kind of cool, actually. I sort of enjoyed seeing the crowd. And there's an old lady who gets shown a bunch of times in the front row with sort of short, curly, like permed hair and glasses, who's like losing her mind. She wants everyone to get bloody and die.
Yeah. There's also a couple of these crowd shots that just don't work because the house lights are off. And so it's just like you can't see anything except for like kind of like a shadowy figure cheering and screaming. Like that's all you can see. So it's definitely an interesting perspective. There's not as much of that like beautiful polished camera work either. There's some amazing little angles that happen every once in a while, but there wasn't really like a hard cam, as they call in the biz, of where like this is always the standard shot, and then we would go to ringside cameras to get like specialty action shots or anything like that, like you see in WWF. This definitely seemed like they had like 2 ringside cameras and then like a third boom camera or something like that. So it's a very different viewing experience, but you get a bit more up and personal watching this than you did with WrestleMania.
Yeah, for sure. There's one of the tag team matches. The camera is clearly sort of at the ropes when somebody gets whipped into the ropes. I think it's one of the tag team matches. Maybe you remember which one it was. And it's a pretty jarring and exciting shot, actually. And then there's also some shots where it looks like the camera person is starting in like the 5th row of the crowd and kind of like zooms up to the ring, which is weird. Like he's filming the end sequence of Star Wars or something. So I don't know. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, this is definitely a very enjoyable show and a very enjoyable experience overall. And it's kind of a reminder of what wrestling used to be.
For sure. Did I mention the tagline on this is The Gathering, which I was kind of hoping, I really kind of hoped it was a Highlander reference, but Highlander came out in 86 and this is November of 85. So I don't, unless somebody got a peek at an early script or something. I don't know. If anybody knows anything about that, let us know. It seems a little too coincidental.
Yeah.
It's a bloody gathering though. There's a lot of juice.
God. Yeah.
There's a lot of juice.
It's very moist and very very red. show. I think there's blood in every match. I think
I think so too. I was about to say, pretty much. I'm
maybe
scrolling.
Crusher Khrushchev versus Sam Houston. I don't think there might have been blood.
Yeah,
But after that, everybody and their mom bleeds. Like, I'm sure that several people in the crowd got color during this show.
and
It's
hepatitis.
oh my god, this is a health scare. Like this both of these arenas are outbreaks. I don't know for Hep C. There's this bad. It's just ugly and messy. More stains for that old NWA
I
mat.
was gonna say now you know why the canvas looks that way. So yeah, if you like blood, this is a show for you. If you're not into the blood so much, then maybe skip this one. Maybe watch WrestleMania instead.
I don't think a single person at WrestleMania got color at the first WrestleMania.
Yeah, well, it's for the kids, right? You can't be
Right.
bleeding all over the
And
place.
it's probably one of the biggest differences between these shows in wrestling style is just nobody bleeds. And this one, everybody bleeds. So,
Everybody bleeds. That should have been the tagline.
yeah, Starrcade 85, everybody bleeds.
10 out of 10 would watch. So first up, we got Sam Houston, younger brother to Jake Roberts, by the way, versus our buddy Barry Darso as Crusher Khrushchev. You remember Barry Darso.
He's the most unconvincing Russian ever.
He doesn't even attempt to put on like a shitty Russian accent. He's just
No.
he's like, I'll tell you what, these American wrestlers don't know what's up. Russian wrestlers are the best. Am I right?
Yeah, like these Russian guys where I grew up sure taught me good how to wrestle.
It's funny. I thought maybe he was just more culturally Russian than like nationality. I don't know.
Who knows?
Maybe he admires their history of the arts or something. So I don't know. Anyway, it's Barry Darso. It's Smash from Demolition. Did you guys remember when we met Demolition?
That was awesome.
That was awesome. He looks fantastic here. He looks like a unit. He does a really impressive overhead slam of poor Sam Houston. They're wrestling for the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship belt, which is vacant, and this one is coming to us from Greensboro.
Yeah, this is a great match. It's a good fast-paced start match. It's kind of choppy though. It starts fast and then slows down, then gets fast again. But the one really big thing that I took out of this is that kayfabe is fully alive for these guys. The crowd 100% believes that Crusher Khrushchev, despite how he talks, is from Russia, and they're chanting USA. It's amazing for the crowd to be that, like, have that much buy-in to this, to what is such a blatantly not real thing.
He's from Minnesota.
That's the other thing, is that he's got a southern twang when he talks later in the show. He's got a southern twang, but he's from Minnesota and he's pretending to be Russian.
Well, as we discussed on the Demolition episode, which you guys should listen to because it's awesome, he spent time in Florida and Georgia Championship Wrestling. It's probably hard not to pick up a little bit of twang while you're down there, you know?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it's like the NASCAR thing, to where like once you become a NASCAR driver, you have to talk like that, whether you're from the South or not. That this is how everybody else talks, and so therefore that is how you talk. And so he's in the Southern Territories working. He needs to sound like he's from there, even though he's a Russian.
Well, maybe it's a good theory. My theory was more along the lines of the military accent, the U.S. military accent. Like there's a very specific accent that folks have because they live. A lot of the bases are in the South, but you're not in the South because you're on a base with a bunch of people from all over the place, right? So it's a very like I don't know, cosmopolitan's maybe a little strong, but you know what I mean? Like it's sort of this weird,
they're like
mix.
Enclaves kind of.
Yeah, it's like this mix of accents, but you can tell almost instantly if somebody has spent, a lot of time in the military. They have that. Anyway, maybe wrestlers are like soldiers that way. So we should thank them both for their service. Anyway, this crowd is hot, as you said. I don't know why Sam Houston's so skinny. Did they not feed him on the circuit? Like, I kind of want him to.
He's still young and up and comer here, so like he's probably on the potato diet like Stone Cold was, just driving 400 miles every night and eating raw potatoes in the back of his Honda Civic. And this has the classic kind of dusty like finish, to where Sam Houston lands his big bulldog, the running bulldog, but right before the ref hits 3, Crusher gets his foot on the rope, and Sam thinks he won the match, but he ends up getting blindsided by Crusher's signature move, the sickle, and gets pinned for getting the championship, and we have Crusher Khrushchev winning the championship.
Yeah, the bamboozle.
You
That was a
can't help
fun
but
one.
to be happy for him, even though he's the heel. Like, for some reason, I was like, "Oh, good for him!" Like, I don't I don't understand why, but I was just like, "Oh,
Good for future Smash. We're
maybe it's
glad.
because I met him that I was happy for him or something." I don't
Yeah.
know.
He talked about in one of those interviews that we read with him, he talked about how this was his favorite gimmick that he ever did. Obviously, he's wrong, and Smash was better, but he really enjoyed working as Crusher Khrushchev, and especially working with Ivana and Nikita Koloff and all the crazy like hour-long matches and stuff they had down there. He said that's where he really learned how to work.
I would understand why this would be his favorite gimmick, and partially probably because he just has nostalgia, because he's super young, he's in amazing shape, and he's working with amazing talent. Sam Houston was great, and then like the Koloffs were great, but like he's also working in just like a promotion that is working with Buddy Landell and Ric Flair and Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA. Like, he's in a place of greatness at this point, so I totally get it.
It'd be really really easy to kind of rise to the occasion in that sort of environment. So next up on the card is Manny Raging Bull Fernandez versus Abdullah the Butcher, who's managed by Paul Jones. It is a Mexican death match from Atlanta. And what makes it a Mexican death match, apparently, is that there's no disqualifications, no stoppages. The ref is not in the ring, et cetera, et cetera. But to win, you have to climb the corner post and retrieve a sombrero. I'm not sure how to feel about that. But I did like the ref kind of giving his sort of ominous warnings at the beginning of the match about there will be no disqualifications. There will be no stoppages for blood. The referee will not be in the ring. He will be on the floor. So they're letting you know.
Yeah, this Abdullah on his way to the ring seems to get very physical with a fan. I don't know if you saw that. He like jostles with him, and I think Abdullah was about to actually kill him until the police got in between them and broke them up. Like, why would you pick a fight with Abdullah the Butcher? Like, you can look at his face and tell that, one, he's not afraid to bleed, he's not afraid to get stabbed, and he's not afraid to stab you because he stabs himself all the time. That was not a wise choice.
No, not at all. The man gets stabbed for a living. What are you going to do?
Right. This is what a hardcore match should be, in my opinion. They literally there's no rules. So Abdullah didn't care, and like the moment that bell rang, he went into his tights and got that sharp object that he always carries, like the fork thing.
The fork, yeah.
And he goes wailing on Manny, and then he goes and gets the timekeeper's hammer. Like, he's not fucking around. Like, that's a hardcore match. Like, oh, well, I can do whatever I want. I'm gonna kill the guy. That's what I'm gonna do.
His name is the Butcher.
Yeah, it's so much more believable.
Yeah, no, he doesn't wait. Like he just goes immediately to the fork. He's just and Manny starts bleeding like crazy almost instantly.
God.
And
like,
then
it's a nauseating amount of blood.
It's bad. It's really bad. I wrote, "Sweet Jesus, this is some violence." Manny loses both of his boots, and they take turns braining each other with the boots, which is a really good spot. I enjoyed that. Manny does this impressive suplex of Abdullah that scared the living hell out of me.
Oh my God,
Jesus!
That's brave of Butcher to be willing to go up as a man that big. I mean, he's not at his biggest at this point, but he's still a big boy. And Manny gets him up and suplexes him in a very quick snap suplex. He didn't there was no Goldberg holding him up for a minute and then slamming him down, but he got it. And I really liked the bit where Manny loses it and takes off his belt and starts whipping Abdullah with it. That was a great moment, and the crowd went went crazy for it. This crowd is bananas in both arenas. So this one is coming from the Omni in Atlanta, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
So they're losing their ever loving shit over this match, and they should be, because it is violence and it's amazing.
Well, after Manny loses his boots, he's got blood on his socks, like in multiple places.
Yeah.
You don't see that. So for the finish on this one, Abdullah whips Manny to the corner and tries to come in with a splash, but misses and posts himself. So Manny jumps up like right over top of Abdullah and grabs the hat for the win, and hopefully for a quick trip to the hospital for a blood transfusion.
And a lot of stitches.
So many stitches. That was such a good match. I didn't have any expectations, except I figured it would be bloody, but that was fantastic. There's a Crusher promo back in Greensboro. This is where he's saying, well, this is proof that the Russians are superior athletes, like me, who is obviously from Russia, as you can tell.
Me and my Russian friends, we are the superior athletes here. Like, I even think he uses like "I reckon" and stuff like that in this promo. So it's like, you're so Russian. I'm so convinced.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe, this is the 80s. Maybe this is like the Americans, he's like a deep cover spy. He's been here for so long.
Oh, yeah. He could be, his parents could have been the Russians and birthed him in Minnesota to spy. And the KGB recruited him.
Yeah. And then he would go on to spread Satanism through the popular tag team Demolition, hence contributing to the fall of America.
And then when all the Americans have debt, he's the one that comes around and repossesses your car and your boats and your private jets as the repo man with his hook.
That's right. And then he makes fun of you as the evil golfer, as he just spends his millions out there on the golf course and laughs at the poors.
At the poor people.
I think we're uncovering some shit here about Mr. Darso.
There's a very linear
Comrade
line.
Darso, yeah. Anyway, Comrade Darso. That sounds good, actually. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Next up. Oh, look, there's more blood. This is Ron Bass versus Black Bart, who's managed by JJ Dillon. And in case we haven't had enough with the gimmicks yet, this is a Texas bull rope match live from Greensboro. And if Bass wins, he gets 5 minutes of a bull rope match with JJ Dillon. Is the stipulation. So I guess we kind of know how this is going to go.
Yeah, it's very similar to the Vern Gagne Sheik thing, right?
Yeah, right.
If Greg can win his match, Vern gets his 5 minutes in the cage with the Sheik. So
yeah, Ron Bass looks like an old school badass. Like, I wouldn't go in there with him on a bet.
No. He literally looks like he just came from a bar beating the shit out of 20 people. And now he's here to all right, I'm warmed up. Let's do this. Because, Black Bart starts bleeding almost immediately in this match.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how. This is like the bell rang and Bart is bleeding. I don't understand what happened.
I think, is it possible to just bleed from fear?
It's possible. Because at some point, Bart was bleeding so badly that Ron is covered in blood spatter from a cowbell shot.
Gross.
It's so gross. And they're really hitting each other with that cowbell. And God, this match, these two matches back to back is brutality and cruelty. And I'm impressed that they managed to keep viewers after this. It's so violent.
And I'm surprised both of these men managed to live through this exchange. I didn't even actually write down what happened. I just was kind of blown away by the by the violence. I did
there
catch
isn't much that happens except for Bart hits Ron with the bell in the middle of the bull rope, and then Ron hits Bart with the bell. It's just back and forth bell shots until basically in a tremendous moment, Ron punches Bart in the face with the bell. Shocker. and Bart staggers, and then he locks his knees just right, and while punching at the air, and then goes down like a tree in a face bump,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
such a great moment.
That was beautifully done. Just straight over. I don't know how you do that and not unlock your knees. You know what I mean? And not try to catch yourself. Nothing. Just like you said, like a tree. That was great.
Yeah,
So,
and it takes an incredibly bold referee to wear yellow. He's wearing bright yellow in this match. And I'm amazed that it wasn't like turning pink from all the blood that's like flying around in this match.
Yeah. So because Ron gets the win, then that means he gets a shot at JJ Dillon. And JJ's obviously a little concerned about this. He's wearing a tuxedo T-shirt instead of his usual tuxedo because he knows he might have to, get it on. So,
though I like how this goes though, because
yeah, I did too.
Bass is like he's hurting from the fight with Bart. Bart gave him a decent whipping, even though Ron came out of it winning, and so JJ like recognizes this and hops right into the ring immediately, and ties into the rope and gets the early advantage on Bass, and then eventually Bass does his version of hulking up. I don't know what else to call it, but he hulks up. He's like shaking and looking at the crowd.
He basses up
for support. He basses up. He gets drunk, basically, I think. And he cracks JJ with the bell. So we get that satisfying, finally, that villain, dastardly JJ Dillon takes a bell to the face, and he's bleeding. And he even does a face bump, like a Ric Flair or Greg the Hammer Valentine style. And then Bass tries to hit Dillon, but ends up knocking out the ref instead. And that's when Bart hops back in the ring and pile drives Bass. And Dillon flops on top of him and gets the win.
Yeah.
So good.
And Dillon is also sort of knocked unconscious. So he's unconscious on top of Bass. So he gets a pin. Yeah. That was great. Man, what a circus. And
everybody's bleeding.
What a beautiful symphony of violence. So
the Red Cross has a truck parked outside for sure.
Yeah. It's hard to continue a match when you've actually bled to death. It's tricky. The next one is Superstar Billy Graham versus the Barbarian, who is managed by Paul Jones. So they've got an arm wrestling match. This is in Atlanta now. They've got what looks like a kid's classroom table and chairs set up, like the kind with
one of those professional arm wrestling tables, like
seriously
the handles or something.
You could rent it. Like, when did Over the Top come out? That's like 87, right? So like these things existed. You could have.
They stole some like kids' art craft table from like a classroom, and like is there an elementary school down the street, and they put that in the ring, and they and these two little chairs, and so you have these two hulking monster muscle bound men like sitting in these tiny chairs trying to fit behind this tiny desk, trying to arm wrestle.
It almost seems like a rib, like a joke on these guys. It's kind of funny. So the other thing I noticed is that Billy Graham's facial hair is sort of an exact match of the Barbarian's haircut. Like you could swap one for the other. You could like face swap them. So they go at it. They flex a little unconvincingly. Superstar finally hawks up, or Graham's up. I don't know, whatever you want to say.
Billy's up.
Billy's up and gets the pin. And then Jones, of course, attacks him with the cane. And now he's bleeding because, of course, he is. So then they go into a match. Were they supposed to have a match? Or is it just turn into a match?
I think it was supposed to be a match after the arm wrestling, I think.
So the arm wrestling was like an appetizer.
Yeah.
Like a shrimp cocktail.
It's a weird setup, and they don't exactly explain it clearly. But yeah, so they end up having a match. And this is actually the first time I ever saw a Superstar Billy Graham match.
Yeah, me too. I feel like maybe I saw some in the WWF when he kind of like came over mid 80s, but that's sort of late, that's late Superstar,
Yeah.
And this is late Superstar too. I mean, most of his stuff was in the 70s, right?
Yeah, he's definitely late of his career or or has just ended his career and has agreed to come back for this one final thing. It's just kind of I don't quite understand what's happening here. It's not like this is really bad. It's just kind of confusing. And both times the arm wrestling match ends with Paul Jones attacking him with a cane, attacking Billy with a cane, and then they go into the wrestling match. And then the wrestling match is okay. I mean, there's mainly just a bear hug happening. It's two big,
Yeah.
muscly, meaty guys. So it's not like they're doing a lot of technical stuff. It's the most WWF looking wrestling match on this show. And then just as it looked like the Barbarian was going to be deemed unconscious from the bear hug, Paul Jones again jumps in the ring and hits Billy with the cane, and then the Barbarian gets disqualified. So like you have absolutely no resolution to whatever the hell was happening between these two people.
I mean, get a new shtick already and just stop hitting people with canes. That's boring. Yeah, Barbarian actually is pretty impressive here for a big guy. So
Yeah.
he came over to WWF and he seemed to be significantly larger in terms of muscle. There, maybe it's just my memory, or maybe something happened in between. I don't know. So he actually moves around a little bit better here than I'm used to seeing him. But yeah, I don't know. He's large. Superstar looks good. You know, he's no stranger to the enhancements himself. He'll talk pretty openly about that. So yeah, and then it's over. But there's a lot of blood. Billy's head is bleeding on the Barbarian's chest at one point during the bear hug. It leaves like a Rorschach ink blot test on his chest.
That's why the Barbarian had a tattoo of my parents fighting.
Yeah.
Oh.
Nice one. You're clearly wrong. It was a tattoo of my Scoutmaster touching me. So. Anyway, are we ready to move on?
Yeah, this is an interesting one here.
Yeah. I'll just put a plug in for Over the Top, which is the definitive arm wrestling movie.
Well, how else are you supposed to determine custody of a child?
Right. It's the best way. It's the only way, actually, under American man rules.
All right, you're a lonesome trucker, and you want to take care of your kid. You got to protect your kid. So obviously, you arm wrestle to keep him.
Just like we used to do it in the old days.
This is the 80s.
Yeah. Why hasn't somebody remade Over the Top yet? We got a Top Gun.
Over the Top. That's why.
We got a Top Gun sequel and no Over the Top reboot.
I mean, it's the same probably reason why they haven't like revisited the Iron Eagle movies or anything like that.
Yeah.
You can only have like your mentor shot down so many times and him leave you a tape to inspire you to win. Like that only you can only do that so many times, which is apparently 3 times.
Well, nowadays you can leave you an MP3. Wouldn't have to be a tape. So that's the twist. That's the modernized.
And you're actually just a drone pilot sitting in a computer room in the Pentagon.
Right. With covered in Cheeto dust.
Right. So it's not believable anymore.
Yeah. Anyway, we keep getting distracted. It's Friday. It's been a long week. I started a new job.
Oh
my brain's kind of boiled, broiled, fried, all those things. This is Buddy Landell, Nature Boy Buddy Landell, right?
Yes.
With James J. Dillon again versus Terry Taylor, who is not yet the Red Rooster, but you can see it coming.
Oh, yeah.
Dillon's got his head wrapped in bandages from an earlier escapade, so we know
and he
it's
may
legit.
have stitches under there. It kind of looks like he might have had a few stitches, or they just put something under there to make it look like he has stitches. But it's very convincing. Like,
yeah, he
looks like a Revolutionary War like vet guy that you'd picture
playing the drums. Like,
yeah, like he's in that is that a Wyeth painting of like the Revolutionary guys drumming and fifing? I was trying to reference the painting Spirit of 76 by Archibald Willard.
Yeah.
Anyways, Buddy Landell, boy. So he really wants to be Ric Flair. He just straight up thought he would be able to like rip off Ric Flair's gimmick, the whole shebang. He does Ric Flair's moves. He has Ric Flair's nickname. He has Ric Flair's look. And he apparently thought that this would be okay because Ric Flair did the same thing to Buddy Rogers, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, who basically Ric Flair took everything from, but Buddy Rogers was close to retirement and had like given Flair's blessing to continue on as the Nature Boy. Meanwhile, Nature Boy Ric Flair is in his prime, and Buddy Landell just comes along and be like, "Well, I'm going to do that now." And
Flair's in his prime and on the same damn show.
on the same show. It's not confusing at all that there's two Nature Boys with bright blonde white hair doing the figure 4 and having wiry frames.
Do you think there's any fans out there who are just sort of like hipster fans who are like deliberately like, Flair's okay, but for my money, Buddy Landell's is the real Nature Boy. He's where it's at. Like,
he's more natural.
Yeah. he's the LPs.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's someone out there like that's a big Buddy Landell fan that has no idea that Ric Flair existed and thinks that Buddy Landell created this whole thing and it was a beautiful shtick. Or like if there's someone out there that like Buddy Landell is their favorite wrestler, and there probably is. I mean, I've never criticized people for having weird favorites. There was every movie and every book and every song is somebody's favorite. So I'm sure every wrestler has a fan that they're their favorite. So
yeah,
to those Buddy Landell fans out there, great. He definitely seems like a pretty talented guy, just not very creative.
Yeah, I mean, he can work for sure. I mean, and he and Terry have a pretty good match here. Actually, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There's some stiff moves here. Terry hits him with this stiff forearm that looked like he about cleaned his clock. I thought Terry Taylor was going to wrap it up with that move, but he goes up to the top for a superplex and can't get Buddy over. So Buddy falls on top of him, and the ref, who got bumped a little bit earlier, wakes up just in time to get the 3 count and give the belt to Buddy Landell, which I didn't mention at the top is the NWA National Heavyweight Championship belt.
Yeah, so Terry couldn't get the superplex to happen because JJ Dillon has reached in and grabbed his ankle. I don't know exactly how that prevents you from just falling backwards with someone up for a suplex, but okay, that's fine. There was 2 things that really stood out in this match to me, and it was that like Terry was in some sort of weird like headlock kind of thing with from Buddy, and Terry lunges forward just right, and it catapults Buddy's head into the bottom turnbuckle in a very nasty looking hit. And then after that, at some point, Terry just stands on Buddy's face. He just stands on it. And that was, look, both of them looked rough along with that clubbing forearm that you talked about there. And the crowd did not like the result of this.
Doesn't your toddler do the stand on your face move to you?
Yes, he does. He does a stand, and then he sits on the back of my head and bounces like he's riding a horse.
Nice.
There might be a reason why I have the Shawn Michaels eyes now. There's,
yeah.
But yeah, the crowd is not happy with the result of this match at all.
Yeah,
at all.
Well, they know Buddy Landell is a crock of shit, and the poor man's Ric Flair. They ain't having it.
The crime against Nature Boy is now the champion, and the crowd doesn't like it. It's bad news.
It's unfortunate. There's a similar finish actually with the next match with somebody grabbing somebody's ankle, and it's not entirely sure how it actually affects things, but this is not to spoil or anything. This is the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, Ole and Arn Anderson, versus Wahoo McDaniel and Billy Jack Haynes. I'm not sure how those 2 guys got teamed up here, but this is for the NWA National Tag Team Championship. Billy Jack Haynes, Jesus H. Christ. First of all, he looks exactly like Dr. Death Steve Williams, but maybe larger, maybe, I don't know. They're both
He's a bit
huge.
Slimmer, but taller, I think. I don't know, but he's a big son of a bitch.
Yeah, he's an absolute unit. His trunks just say Oregon because I don't know why. Actually,
Uh,
he's from
so I
Oregon.
think it's good to point out here that the reason why we're not really sure how these different moves are if these like cheat grabs from the outside of the ring are helping or costing people the match is because we don't actually see them happen during the match. We don't, because the camera work and how bad everything is shot most of the time, you can't see these cheating maneuvers happening until they show us the replay after the match and go, oh, so that's why he couldn't kick out. The dude's holding his leg from outside of the ring. He can't get the leverage to kick out. But you can't see that happening when it's actually happening. So
Yeah,
like the heat that is happening with the viewers is delayed because we got to wait until the replay to see the cheat.
yeah. The camera angles are not great. So I thought actually when the first time I watched this through, I had to wait for the replay. I actually thought that Ole had nut shotted Wahoo at the end there,
Yeah.
but actually he just grabs his ankle so that he falls over. Because if a grown man grabs your ankle, you fall over. It's like immediate. It's just a fact.
Yeah, so this match also has the entrance stuff. I'm not exactly sure. I can't find anything saying that the Peacock did it or maybe this was done for the DVD release. But there's definitely some like what sounds like entrance music being dubbed over with other entrance music, or something is weird because Wahoo and Billy Jack definitely come out to a synth like instrumental version basically of Party Like It's 1999 by Prince. It's almost identical. It's got to be what that is. And then Billy Graham, superstar Billy Graham, came out to what sounds very much like The Final Countdown by Europe. But that song didn't come out until 1986. So I don't know if like this stuff is being dubbed in later to avoid copyright, because I know Billy Graham, at least in the WWF and other places, used to come into the overture from Jesus Christ Superstar, which is a very, very bold choice in entrance music.
That's freaking brilliant. Is what that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I don't know if Wahoo and Billy Jack also had ripped off entrance music, but the that Prince, it's definitely Prince-esque, Party Like It's 1999-esque entrance music. And so I don't know if Peacock is doing this or if the NWA did this when they released the VHS/DVD, or maybe this is actually what they've been playing in the arena. I don't know. I don't think it was for superstar Billy Graham, but it might have been for um, Wahoo and Billy Jack. So
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting how the sort of the music stuff plays out, and it's a little difficult to tell what's original and what's been kind of fixed in post by the Peacock. So, but no, this is a fun match actually. Wahoo McDaniel, they work on his arm because one of his big things is his chops. And so they're trying to, disable that arm so he can't chop the shit out of him. Hey, spoiler alert, he still chops the shit out of him.
oh
Like,
my god, those chops.
like at various points, both of the Andersons will have, one arm and he just has one free arm. He's just whacking on their chests.
These massive overhand open palm like chop/slaps. This like someone just like winding up and smacking you right in the center of your chest with an open palm. It like at home you can feel the air get sucked out of your chest, your own chest, and you're not even taking the shot. I can't imagine how like Ole and Arn are feeling taking these like ballistic missile of chops to their chests.
I would want to work on Wahoo's arm too, so he couldn't do that to me.
Yeah.
I'd be like, hey, can we not this time?
No.
Hey, what if you sell the arm the whole match? Hey, how about that, buddy? Is that a good idea? You sell the
Yeah.
arm, maybe, please.
The other thing I wanted to look up was just like how old is Wahoo McDaniel at this point? Because it seems like everything that we've seen him, he always looks just like old, like he's
He looks
perpetually
fucking old,
looking
yeah.
old, like he's like Wilford Brimley always looked perpetually old, even though like Tom Cruise is now older than what he was in Cocoon. But Okay, so
So he was born in 38. So he would have
38.
been
He's
what
40s,
40
47. My math right there. 47
somewhere
years
around there.
old in this match.
Yeah.
Whew, he's getting up there,
Jesus.
and he still goes.
Yeah. He can hang.
Like,
He can hang with
yeah,
the kids.
because he comes in like a firecracker at one point on a hot tag and just starts laying everybody out with those nasty ass chops.
Yeah. Imagine being in on a team with Billy Jack Haynes, who looks like 300 pounds of muscle, and like the guy you're afraid of is actually near 50-year-old Wahoo McDaniel. Like, that's gotta be an ego check for you. Like,
Yeah,
hey, Billy Jack, you look tough and all, but you're no 50-year-old ex-football player.
yeah. I was just looking up Billy Jack here. He's born in 53, so he's more in his prime at this point.
Yeah.
And he had just started wrestling in 82 at this point. So he's only been in the business for 3 years, but he trained at Stu Hart's Dungeon. So that's interesting.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And he really was from Oregon, just like his tight said.
Yeah, thank God.
He always says he's only 6'3". I'm 6'3", so he's not that big.
He just
246.
looks it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all those camera angles from outside of the ring shooting up at people makes him look huge. But I mean, the dude's ripped.
Yeah.
He is jacked.
So for the finish on this one, Wahoo backs Arn into a corner. Ole's on the floor outside of the ring, and he kind of grabs Wahoo's ankle, and then Arn knocks him over, and Ole sort of hangs on to Wahoo's foot, so he can't kick out of the pin. So it's sort of a dirty finish. The Minnesota Wrecking Crew retain the titles, the NWA National Tag Team Championship. The crowd is also not pleased with this one.
No. And this is one of those moments, again, where I always ask about wrestling rules. So, like, sometimes as they treat the ropes as like the plane, like it's a plane, like the touchdown line in football, like the goal line, as long as that ball touched that area at some point going across the goal line, it counts as going into the end zone. Now, sometimes in wrestling, just having your legs underneath the rope to the outside of the ring counts as being out of bounds. But sometimes they make you actually have your foot on the ropes or something touching the ropes to be out of bounds. And so at this point, Wahoo would have to have his leg out of the ring for Ole to be able to hold it. But it still counts as a pin. It's still good. It's one of those little inconsistencies that irritate me a little bit in pro wrestling. Is that rule right there? Is this like, did he break the rope lane, or does he actually have to touch the ropes? So,
Wonder if this is one of those NWA versus WCW things.
it might be. I don't know. I know the NWA at this point still has the rule to where your tag partner is only allowed to break up a pin for you once. If he does it again, the ref can disqualify your team. So I know that was an NWA rule, and they actually mentioned it in this show. But I don't know about this whole like you must touch the ropes as opposed to just breaking the plane of the ropes to have a break or the pin to not count. So I don't know.
These are important. Yeah, I don't know either. Important questions.
This is important for my enjoyment.
Internet, figure it out for us. Send us a note. There's a promo with Buddy Landell and JJ Dillon afterwards. He's doing his Ric Flairist. He's okay on the mic. I don't know. I didn't fall asleep, but I also wasn't particularly moved.
No.
He's excited about winning. I got that much. So.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about this next match, which is a doozy. This is one of the ones that popped up on a bunch of people's best ever Starrcade matches lists, and so that kind of led us to watch this show, and it's pretty good. This is Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard, who's with Baby Doll. It's an I Quit steel cage match for the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship, and hot damn.
Yeah. What I really like about this match, so like we've watched other I Quit matches, and we're just kind of like, meh. But this one, what makes this a really great I Quit match is that your opponent needs to hold the microphone in your face and force you to say it. So it's not like the ref like holding the microphone and like Roddy Piper, what do you say? What do you say? What do you say? And Brett versus Bob Backlund. What do you say? Come on. Do you quit? Do you quit? No, you got to like beat the crap out of your opponent, walk over and grab the microphone that still has a cord. It's not like wireless or anything because it's mid 80s. So you got to drag the microphone across the ring and hold it in your downed opponent's face and make him say, I quit. And it makes some really great dramatic moments in this match with that whole concept.
Yeah, lots of drama, lots of screaming, and lots of blood, of course. Both of these guys look like absolute studs, especially Magnum. Like, we talked a little bit off the air about, how seeing him here in such amazing shape, and he's clearly, next level, right? There are the mid-card guys, and then there are the guys who are going to be stars, and go about as far as you can go. And Magnum was one of those guys. Of course, not too long after this, he had an accident that sort of made him unable to wrestle again. And it really, makes you a little bit sad to, think about what was lost there. So his story is kind of a tragic one. But there's also a really great contrast between him and Tully. So he's, Magnum is sort of a golden god. He's got that blonde perm and the mustache, and Tully is sort of shorter and kind of dark haired and very furry, and so they look like
stocky and like
a little stocky and like beefy, and they look like they're just meant to hate each other and to go at it hammer and tongs.
Yeah, there's a third stud in this ring. Did you recognize the referee?
Who was the referee?
Earl Hebner. It's a young Earl Hebner. Yeah,
I don't know if I noticed.
It's like one of his first like televised matches, apparently.
Wow.
So yeah, like, and just like how I talked about how like Abdullah and Manny, like that's how you do it. Like you just go for the kill. And like that's what these guys do too. They immediately go into like a bar brawl, like rolling around on the floor, on the mat, trying to get in cheap shots on each other. They're fighting. It's supposed to look like a fight. It's a fight. And they start bleeding quick, just like every other match. Someone starts bleeding fast. Yeah, and like so it's in a cage, and so we're in the period of time now to where the moment anything on your body hits the cage unintentionally, you bleed. It just breaks your skin immediately. It's very unsafe. It's got barbs. It's probably rusty. I mean, if you looked at the ring, you're not going to be surprised that cage is also unsafe. So, and there's some just great moments in this match, and then there's some moments that take you out of it, such as when the young Earl Hebner decides to do a microphone check after the first you quit. He then taps on it and blows into the microphone, and then puts the microphone back down.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Is this thing on? I quit. Check. Yeah, no, they get at it. I liked that sort of, like you said, that bar brawl. It looked like two guys like trying to fight, because that's what happens when two guys actually fight. They end up kind of rolling around on the floor awkwardly, like it doesn't happen like in the movies. That's what it actually looks like. They just freaking go for it. Tully works on Magnum for a good long time. There's some test of strength kinds of stuff. There's a bit where he sort of like picks Magnum up by the hair, and you can kind of see him like calling moves into Magnum's beautiful mane. He's like talking into the top of his head, to call the next moves. So at some point, are we ready to talk about the chair, or did you have something else?
Well, no. Like one of the first checks to see if Magnum would quit, Tully brings the microphone over to them and holds Magnum by the back of his hair and is like, "Do you quit? Do you quit?" And Magnum's like, "No, get off me!" And then Tully just starts bashing him in the head with the microphone, like it's a real fight. It's so good, and all of the like their timing of coming around to asking was also really good. It just wasn't constant. It was like, okay, well then I need to beat the shit out of you some more. And they would go at it some more, and they would suddenly it would get turned back around, and then Magnum's asking Tully, "Do you quit?" And he's like, "No." And then he starts choking him with the wire to the microphone and stuff. Like, it's crazy. And then like there's a couple wrestling moves, but for the most part, it's just punching the shit out of each other.
Yeah,
And
and I
there's
I really I really appreciate when he bashes him with the mic because you can hear it's like boom, boom, boom,
yeah,
boom, like through the PA. Like
for someone
this,
that gets into the sound of a wrestling match, it was so good to hear boom, 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 boom with these shots. Like it adds authenticity to it. Like he's hitting him. You can't
yeah.
necessarily tell how hard he's hitting him, but he's really hitting him with that microphone.
Yeah, it's amazing. So then at some point, somebody tosses a wooden chair into the ring and it breaks into about a dozen pieces when it lands in the ring. But there's a really conveniently broken off sharp piece that Tully grabs and starts going to work on Magnum. And he's sort of like holding the pointed end over Magnum's head and like pressing it down and pressing it down. And he's like almost got it. And they fight it off. And like, it was beautiful.
It was terrifying. That
Yeah.
part is so scary. Like, what if like they're sweaty and bloody? Like, what if Magnum's arm slips a little bit? Tully's like giving full force into trying to drive that shard into his eye. Like, if Magnum's grip slips a little bit, like he's losing an eye in this match. He might die. Like Tully could just fall forward by accident a little bit, or like a slippage with that shard from the chair is going to kill somebody. It's insane. It's
Yeah.
just insane. It's so scary. Like
There's no kayfabe in that one.
no. Like the crowd could have seen Magnum TA die in this moment. Like they could have just like it just would have been like I don't know. You didn't watch Game of Thrones, did you?
No.
No. So like there's this one big there's a big duel between um one guy from one kingdom who's like fast and got a spear and this other guy that's just called the Mountain, right? And
Okay.
so he's the fast guy with the spears landed a couple shots and he's taunting the guy because he looks like he's got him down. But then the Mountain just grabs the guy's head and starts squeezing it out of nowhere and it explodes and like the crowd just goes silent watching this fight. Like he just crushed his face. And it's like something like that could have happened in this moment. Like just one little slip and that chair is going through Magnum TA's face.
I had a flash forward, I guess, to Die Hard 2, where he fights the guy outside the church in the snow and ends up stabbing him in the eyeball with the
Oh
icicle.
yeah.
So, could have been the same thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So eventually Magnum gets out of that and reverses it, and he gets the sharp piece of the chair and goes to work on Tully and I guess grinds down close enough to the bone to make him finally say that he quits.
Yeah. Oh,
It's gratuitous.
yeah, and like the crowd explodes again. Just this crowd is the hottest crowd that we've seen in probably any of the shows that we've watched. It's insane. And you can definitely tell that we're in the South because there is a dude in the front row in overalls, farmer overalls, and no shirt. Like Hillbilly Jim is sitting in the front row of the show.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So Magnum gets the win and the belt there. It's a Pyrrhic victory because he's down a couple of pints. I'm not sure he's going to be able to, move his arms or neck tomorrow, but it's a rough one. It's an amazing match though. Whoever, again, the internet is always right.
So I'm trying to remember, like this match was set up because they had another match that they both passed out of at like the 45-minute mark of the match, I believe. They both like collapsed and the ref did a double count out on them. And so the only way to resolve their feud now was they would have to fight to make the other person quit in a cage. And that was the only way the match would end.
Well, now I kind of want to see that other match.
Yeah. So I want to say that might have been at a Great American Bash, possibly.
All right.
Anyways.
Well, we'll get to Googling. Yeah, for sure. Fantastic. The next match is Jimmy Valiant and Miss Atlanta Lively, who we'll talk about in a minute, with Big Mama versus the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey, managed by Jim Cornette. It's an Atlanta street fight. The Midnight Express's music, we will say it every time, is freaking amazing.
This is a dubbed-in version of their actual theme song. So their actual theme song is like the song from the movie Midnight Express. This is like a dubbed-in generic version of it. It's not quite right. And this is another one of those moments where I'm like, Did Peacock do this? Did Jim Crockett Promotions do this? Is this actually what they played in the arena that night because they already didn't have the rights to it? Like I don't know. It's questionable what's happening here. So
yeah, whatever's going on. So the midnight
for real, what the hell is going on with this match?
What is going on? It's a circus. So Bobby and Dennis from the Midnight are in tuxedos, as is Cornette.
Why? We don't know.
We don't know. Atlanta street fight. Jimmy Valiant, the Boogie Woogie Man, of course. His partner is Miss Atlanta Lively. So the Boogie Woogie Maniac, whatever. Nobody cares.
He is a maniac. Oh my God.
I don't know. So the lead into this must have been, I didn't look this up, must have been some sort of gimmick where they're like, the Midnight Express is like, okay, we pick your partner for you, and we're going to pick a woman, right? Haha, it's hilarious. So they bring in Miss Atlanta Lively, who, spoiler alert, is rugged Ronnie Garvin.
Fist of Steel.
The worst drag outfit you've ever seen in your life. And then they proceed to just like, I don't know what happens. Some stuff.
Yeah, I thought Miss Atlanta kind of looked like Don Morocco, to be honest, in this match. Like I don't know what's happening. So I did look it up, and I found an interview that's one press agency or whatever did with Ron Garvin, and they specifically asked him, like, why'd you do the Miss Atlanta Lively gimmick? And he's like, it made money. I kind of was like, well, we can try this. I was willing to do it, and it went over big with the crowd, especially with the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant. And he's like, it made money. I did it a bunch of times. Every single time the crowd went crazy, I got more bookings. I made me money. That's all what this business is about, right? Making money. So it was a very interesting approach. Like Ron Garvin was willing to dress like a woman, like wig, ugly sweater, fake boobs, skirt, everything to make money.
It's hard to argue with that logic, honestly.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
I would I don't know. I guess there's no way for a match like this to not be a circus, but it is a circus. They're throwing like powder at each other at various points. There's some nice moves on the concrete that were pretty serious, and the crowd really pops for those.
Yeah. Valiant does twitching. He twitches every time he takes a big shot. Like Hulk Hogan. It's kind of uncomfortable. He gets hit with some brass knuckles. Ronnie Garvin, dressed as Miss Atlanta Lively, gets color and is bleeding like crazy, which is just so weird looking. And then there's powder. Everybody's covered in powder. The Midnight Express are wearing prom tuxes that are falling apart. I don't even think I've wrote down who won. I think Miss Atlanta Lively and Jimmy Valiant won this match.
They did. Yeah.
I don't think anybody really wins. There's no winners here.
Yeah. So the Wikipedia results say Bobby Eaton attempted to jump from the top turnbuckle onto Valiant, but Lively caught him with a European uppercut, and Lively then pinned Eaton to win. So, I mean, that's the right outcome there, right? And the faces win, heels go home in defeat.
Yeah. Oh my God. This was like, I don't understand the lure. I mean, the crowd fucking loves Jimmy Valiant.
Yeah.
Like we've seen him in shows where he's masked as and goes by the name Charlie Brown. We've seen him now here just like doing weird Macho Man-esque dancing. Like, I don't know if like Jimmy Valiant took those moves from Macho Man or Macho Man took the knee shimmies from Jimmy Valiant. But I mean, he's dancing and like leaning all over the place, and the crowd just eats him up. I don't understand. I don't understand the appeal of him. I mean, he's a lot of fun kind of to watch, but
I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. He looks like someone with a serious drug problem, honestly.
He's very hyper. Very, very hyper. He's got a lot of uppers going.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back. That was in Atlanta, obviously. Let's go back to Greensboro, where the cage is still up, so that we can bring in the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky and Robert. And they've got Don Cornotto as their manager versus Ivan and Nikita Koloff, So Barry Darso / Crusher Khrushchev's other Russian counterparts, legitimate Russians, obviously. This is a steel cage match for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. And hot damn again.
Yeah, this is a great match.
An exciting match. This is about as good of a tag team match as I think you'll ever see. Like it's prime Rock and Roll Express.
Goddamn Rock and Roll Express, of course it is.
Yeah, and the Koloffs are just awesome heels. The crowd is hot. It's brutal because again we're in like the tetanus trap cage of the 80s. So you just bounce off it's like one of those trampoline zones, except like all the trampolines are made of steel, rough steel, and they scratch you and give you tetanus. That's what this is like. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and we have a fairly traditional Rock and Roll Express match. It starts out with Ricky in the mat and in the ring, and he's kind of getting beat up, but he gets some desperate offense, but he tags out to Robert Gibson, and then Robert just gets his ass beat for like 10 minutes, it feels like, just forever. The dude is just pounded on and he's bleeding, and it's just and we get reminded that this is where we get reminded of that old rule where your tag partner can only break up a pin once without you facing disqualification. And boy, when the Rock and Roll Express, the girls are squealing for them. Whew. It's like Shawn Michaels just came out or something. Like, oh my God.
It's those hairdos, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
That shiny Joe Dirt hair that he's got. Oh my God. Yeah. And the ref gets hit. Like everything that you can imagine happens in this match. And the hot tag comes very late in this match. Like Gibson really takes the brunt of the whole match, which is weird because normally it's Ricky Morton that plays that role, but this time it's Robert eating it, and then we get a hot tag and Ricky's in for 30 seconds or less, and this match is over. It's intense and fast, and everybody's beating up each other. Don Kernodle's out on the outside of the match and outside of the ring, and he even gets blood somehow. Like everybody's bleeding, everybody's beaten up, everybody's going down, and the match ends in chaos too. So it's a delicious tag match.
Yeah, it's a piece of work. I saw the same thing you did, which is, usually it's Ricky Morton that gets his ass beat for like 90% of the match. And then maybe they just decided to swap that night or something. I'm not sure which, maybe just shaking it up a little bit. There's a really nice roll up to get the finish. This was a good match. After the bell, the Koloffs come in and Crusher Khrushchev comes down too. And they beat on Gibson with a chain, which is it's uncalled for. It's not necessary.
Yeah, and then some other dudes come out, and the announcers say that they're other wrestlers, but they're in street clothes, and I swore they just came out of the front row or something. I was like, was this guy just like some fans just charged into the ring? I don't understand what's happening here, but apparently we're wrestlers, and I think one of them was Billy Jack Haynes that came down. That was the face that I think I recognized. I was like, okay, they are wrestlers. But it's like, I don't know who these people are.
Yeah, I kind of thought the one guy, like you said, he kind of looked like you said, just a fan that jumped the barricade. And especially because they take him out pretty quickly and kind of brutally. I'm like, oh, maybe they just clock that guy for,
And some fan going, get off my Rock and Roll Express after he's put down like 5 Miller High Lifes. He's got to defend the Rock and Roll Express from you. Get off my Ricky. So
get off my Ricky. You need to put that in the promo for this match or for this episode.
Get off my Ricky.
All the WrestleMania says, get off my Ricky. Anyway, no, this is a good match. If you like tag team, actually, even if you don't like tag team matches, you should watch this match because then you'll realize that you're wrong and you should like tag team matches. Are we ready for the main event, I think?
Oh, yeah. I think so.
So we're headed back to Atlanta for the finish, right? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the great Dusty Rhodes versus the also great Ric Flair for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship is the main event of this card. It's a barn burner. It's 22 minutes long. Is it the longest match? Oh yeah, it's the longest match by 5 or 6 minutes out of the whole card, both sites. And I don't know, like this is so classic it almost like defies description.
Yeah, and
I
this
mean,
match has lots of history weighing in on it too. Like it's wonderful. I think this is Dusty's possible second shot. I don't want to give spoilers, but his second shot at becoming NWA champion. Ric Flair is established as the dominant guy. He's now the personality that we know of. This looks more like the classic Ric Flair match. We recognize his standard bumps and his moves happen in this match. We have the woo happening. We've got chops. We've got everything that is Ric Flair. We've got the robes. We got the styling and profiling. We got the also Sprock Zarathustra entrance. This is the Ric Flair that everybody knows now.
yeah, I got excited even when the match started and they were just kind of circling each other for like the first lockup, and
Yeah.
Flair's kind of doing that like sort of crouching thing where he's got his
Yeah.
one hand up, and it's like it's so iconic. Honestly, it's
Yeah,
like
and his little like run around in the circle where he tries to get behind the guy and stuff,
yep.
and the guy stops him. Like it's everything that is iconic actually about both of these guys happens in this match, and it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, I may have asked this before, and I don't mean any disrespect at all, but was Dusty Rhodes like ever in shape? Like, was there like an early Dusty Rhodes where he was not like shaped like that?
I don't think so. I have heard maybe it was Stone Cold on Stone Cold's show where he was like, well, there was two groups of wrestlers. There's the gym guys, and then there's not the gym guys. And both of them had their benefits, and Dusty was not one of the gym guys.
Clearly.
I was more concerned about what that thing is on Dusty's side. Like, legit, is that a hematoma? Is it a hernia? What is that bulbous thing that's on his like diaphragm?
I don't know. It's always there. I always kind of thought it was like a birthmark or something, but it's
It
got some
protrudes, and I stare at
dimension
it.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And according to the announcer, there's only a 30-pound difference between Flair and Dusty. I don't think that's right.
I do not believe that at all.
Yeah. Flair, there is serious heat on Flair at the start of this match. The crowd loves Dusty, and we have this iconic shot of like Ric Flair standing in his corner in the robes, getting into the ring, with Dusty in front of us, with his back to us. It's this match has the best camera work of all. Our account on Facebook actually recently posted a still that I taken from this match because it looks like a goddamn Renaissance painting.
It is. I actually, when I saw that, I actually thought about like have that blown up and printed out like in full color, like to hang up either in my office or in my house, because it's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
for those that have not seen it, it is a still. Ric Flair has Dusty in the figure 4, and we have them perfectly lined up where we have Ric Flair's profile, but we have Dusty's face full on, and so we can see some blood running down Ric Flair's face and him like screaming, and Dusty writhing in agony, and the ref is right in Dusty's face perfectly, asking him if he gives up. And it's an amazing shot, and the background is dark, and the ring is pink with blood stains. It's a moment that is undeniably beautiful and is a perfect reflection of professional wrestling at the time.
yeah, and this is actually one of the least bloody matches on this card. Flair gets some color from that hairline of his, of course.
Yeah.
So that he can turn his hair pink. Does Dusty end up bleeding? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I
Yeah,
don't
I don't think
recall
so either.
him getting bloody in this match. This match, right away, it starts off in their traditional fashion. They're circling each other, and then we get a tie up, and Flair takes Dusty into the corner off of the collar and elbow tie up. But right before what looks like it's going to be a clean break, Flair lays in a cheap shot, and then suddenly Dusty snaps, and out come those bionic elbows right to Flair's head. And Flair is like backs away. Dusty then does his little dance strut across the ring. It's so good. And then Flair walks out of the ring, and he even goes over the security barricade and walks into the crowd like he's really got to distance himself because he's so upset about what's happening. Like it's out of control. He needs to get himself back together.
Yeah, it's questionable if he'll come back at all, right? Like
Yeah.
he hangs out there a real long time, which is a really cool move. Dusty sells the foot or the ankle or whatever for a good part of this match. Early
Flair
on,
kicks him right in it, and you can hear
Yeah.
Dusty scream, "Oh God!" and he goes down and like just sells it like Nancy Kerrigan taking the hit from Tanya Harding, you know, like
yeah. Well, and obviously
so good.
it's a great to go after the leg because if you're the figure four leg lock guy like Flair is, right?
Yeah.
Soften that up for a little bit later in the match, and he attempts that figure four a handful of times. He gets kicked off of it a few times. Rhodes kind of hurts his ankle some more in the act of getting Flair off of his legs. so that's a nice little story they're telling throughout.
And there's this one moment where Dusty Flair is trying to get Dusty into the figure four, one of the first ones. And you can hear Dusty scream, "Oh shit, Flair!" Like with great vocals on both parts. Dusty is working over Flair's leg at some point to try and disable the figure four, and we have Flair screaming, "Oh God! Oh God!" like that classic, just like Flair, like shrill agony scream. It's so good. And we have Flair climbing to the top rope and getting caught by Dusty. We have Flair flipping over the top rope. We have Flair flipping over the top rope and then running like a maniac to the cross turnbuckle to climb up and then getting caught from that. He got everything. And then at one point we have Dusty is exhausted. He's been beaten down and he's laying on the mat and like writhing and moaning over his ankle, and Flair is standing over him bloody, and Flair just screams at him, come on, Dusty, come on. Like there's just so much drama happening in this match. I can't even like quantify it in the words how good the storytelling on both sides is happening in this match.
Yeah. It's a work of art. They bump the ref, and Andersons come down and interfere, but they manage to get a new ref down there, and Flair's going to pick up Rhodes, and Dusty like reverses it into an inside cradle, which is insane. Like a guy that size and shape, like doing that kind of move, and he gets the pin and the win and the title. And this is one of the nice things you don't see too much. All the faces come down to celebrate Dusty getting the title.
And they try to pick Dusty up.
Why would you do that?
And they can't. They try to lift him up, and it's just a really awkward, like them carrying him around at like knee level of the ring. That run-in of the Minnesota Wrecking Crew is the birth of the Four Horsemen.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's another reason why this match is so important in the history of wrestling, is that the most iconic stable forms after this match, and they're confused as to why the Minnesota Wrecking Crew would run in to help Flair, and it's because Flair is calling the shots and is forming the Four Horsemen with Ole and Arn, and soon to be joined by Tully Blanchard.
Dusty finished himself on this one. So after Starrcade, the ref actually reversed the outcome to say that he didn't win by pinfall. He won by disqualification because of the interference by the Andersons, which means that Ric Flair held on to the title. So when he formed the Four Horsemen, then like just a couple of months after this show, he was the champion of at the time, and of course Arn and Ole were the tag team champions. So it's quite a turning point here.
Yeah, and one of the biggest bullshit moments of professional wrestling at that time. It's deemed what they use some sort of bullshit replay on World Championship Wrestling that used to air on like Saturdays to show that the original referee in this match had come to enough to see Arn and Ole run into the ring, and that he actually had started signaling for the match to be ended, but the other referee still came down and counted to 3 for the pin. And so that's controversy, and it's Dusty over Dustying himself, and it's craziness, and it's been controversial ever since as to what happened here, and they stripped the title away from Dusty in a heartbreaking moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the Dusty finish gets kind of a bad rap because it does get overused and stuff, but it's also sort of genius because you get the crowd gets that amazing cathartic moment of him beating Flair, right? And you got all the faces coming down and celebrating, and everybody's having a good time. And then you also get the crushing low, the next day or the next weekend or whatever, when the thing is reversed and they take the title away. And then you get all the anticipation and the heat for the inevitable showdown and rematch that's got to come after that, right? So it's, it's kind of, it's cheap maybe, but it also totally works.
Yeah, and after this match, they go to Dusty celebrating in the locker room, and it's a very weird scene. Dusty cuts his promo about this win is for the textile workers. This is for the coal miners, the plumbers. Like he just starts rattling off all these various like blue collar jobs. Like I was like, he started with textile workers. Like that's a very, very specifically targeted audience.
It's for the piecework assembly line workers, the Alaskan king crab fishermen, the non-union plumbers, and the union plumbers. It's for the longshoremen,
the moppers of the porn booths in Times Square. Like it's just very, very specific. This is for the fry cooks at the McDonald's at the corner of...
It's about the guy who sews the little tags on the mattresses that says, "Do not tear this tag off. This one's for you.
This is for product inspector number 63, 64, 72.
You guys did a great job on my coat. Thank you."
And like while this is happening, Wahoo McDaniel is wandering around back and forth on and off camera, looking completely confused. Like it's very clear that this is supposed to be the face locker room and they're all supposed to be celebrating, but the Chief just looks lost and confused and is like, and he looks at the camera multiple times with this like, what happened? What am I supposed to do? Like he's trying to talk to the producers or something, like try to get a clue as to what he's supposed to be doing or something. Like it's
too funny.
It's very weird. And then there was another guy there that I thought was Tully Blanchard multiple times. And like, why would Tully be there? Why is that guy happy? And they even talked to him, and like, I have no idea who the hell he was.
That was product inspector number 76.
Yeah. And then the last thing that we get is like Bob Caudle and Tony Schiavone summarizing up the event, and both of them holding on to the very large phallic microphone in a very weird bromance kind of way. Like they're both grabbing the microphone and like holding it and pulling it towards each other to talk, but like they don't know who should be holding the microphone, and it's very like uncomfortable, awkward moment between them that's just like, are you guys okay?
Like Springsteen and Little Stevie singing into the same mic.
Yeah, and it was also very reminiscent of like in Talladega Nights, and Ricky Bobby wins that race and he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands, and like his hands just keep coming. Well, you just put them down on your side. I don't, but my hands, I don't know what to do with my kind of thing. Like they're just like, they don't know what to do with holding the microphone. Who should be holding the microphone? Whose microphone is it? What should we do? So we'll just both hold it.
It's kind of funny. So we don't do full show, reviews and ratings for these non-WrestleManias, but we do usually best and worst match and oh shit moments. Did you have a best match for this one? It's got a few
Dusty
good
and Ric
choices.
Flair. Dusty and Ric Flair is the best match. It's right up, like it's Tully and Magnum are right behind it, and even Abdullah the Butcher versus Manny Fernandez is very close too. But I think I got to go with Dusty and Flair. They just put on a show that that we're all lucky to have ever seen.
Yeah, that would be my pick too. I would put Rock and Roll Express up there in the top 3. I don't know, it's tough. Like if you're picking a top 3, then one of this really amazing matches got to get cut out. But I would put the Rock and Roll Express up there. My worst one would probably be Superstar Billy Graham versus the Barbarian, just because it seems like an afterthought. And like you said, the finish is the same as the arm wrestling match, which just happened, 5 minutes previously with Paul Jones whacking him with the cane. Not that there's anything wrong with the match necessarily, just it didn't do anything for me.
That match, it kind of felt like one of those, like it's more like they brought Billy Graham out as like a visiting celebrity kind of thing. More like it felt like more like like what you would see on WrestleMania as like a celebrity spot kind of thing, as opposed to like an actual booked wrestling match. I think for my worst match it's probably going to be Terry Taylor versus Buddy Landell. I don't know. I just wasn't feeling that match. I didn't get it. I didn't like it. I just didn't get behind it. I couldn't feel it. So I think that's where I'm at. I just had I felt no investment into that match.
Yeah, I can see that. The other one that was just too much of a mess to really appreciate was that Midnight Express thing with Ronnie Garvin and whatever that was.
I just enjoy that one because it's so much fucking chaos. It's just crazy. It's weird. It is out there for Southern wrestling to be featuring a cross-dressed Ronnie Garvin. It's interesting maneuver. It's a bit more liberal than what I would expect from them. This is it's like the NWA's version of a drag queen story time, kind of. I don't know. Weird.
It borders on performance art. It really does.
Yeah, it does. Like, why are they in prom tuxes? Why is Miss Atlanta Lively dressed like she's ready to go down to the grocery store? Why, like, what is happening? Why is Jimmy Valiant got a weird beard and a ponytail and shimmying his knees all the time? I don't understand what's happening here. There's a lot of powder.
Yeah. Why is Big Mama so hot to be called Big Mama? Like I was thinking like more like Big Mama Thornton kind of big lady was gonna come out, and it's this kind of smoking hot lady. Anyway, that was. Did you have an oh shit moment? I mean, there were a lot of them.
Yeah, it's gonna. Yeah. Oh shit! Look at Ron Garvin. Oh shit! Look at the blood. Oh shit! I think Abdullah the Butcher's really trying to kill Manny. Oh, I think my oh shit moment actually is going to be that moment of that first moment where Tully Blanchard asks Magnum if he wants to give up, and when he refuses, he starts pounding on his face with the microphone. That moment just got me so much. It's because I'm into the audio of it as much as like the visuals and the performance, and that was just a genius moment. And I'm sure they just thought of doing that like in that second, and they don't realize how artful that was and how amazing of a dramatic moment that was. And so I think that's going to be mine.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think mine was probably Abdullah going for that fork like immediately after the bell rang. So this is the second match on the card and the first match on the Atlanta portion of the show. So this is top of the show. Like, this is not, 11:30 p.m. This is, probably 8 o'clock, maybe even earlier. And he's just pulls out a goddamn fork and starts stabbing Manny in the head. And then who proceeds to just spurt blood all over the ring for the next 8 minutes or so. That made me say, holy shit. I'm like, when I saw that, I'm like, what did we just turn on? Like, what is this program? I thought we were going to watch a wrestling show and a murder broke out.
It does feel very ECW-ish,
Yeah.
at least near the beginning with that match. Is this like, this makes me kind of like think of that Danny DeVito meme from It's Always Sunny, where it's like, well, so I started shooting. Like, it's like the bell rings, he goes into his tights, immediately pulls out a sharp object and starts stabbing his opponent with it. It's like,
so anyway,
no
I started
nonsense.
stabbing. Yeah. Hilarious. That's funny. Yeah, no, a world apart from WrestleMania 1.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Can you imagine if they like swapped the feed or something and that Abdullah match got stuck into the WrestleMania?
Oh, that would be amazing.
In the closed circuit TV, people would like start throwing up in the aisle and hiding their children.
All those children crying. There's kids in the audience for these shows too. Like,
oh yeah,
let's not let's not act like this is that people didn't view this also as children's entertainment. It's very intense. I love this show.
It's a really good one.
I love this show. This is probably my favorite non-WWF show that we've watched and reviewed. This is the second time I've watched this Starrcade, and the shit just gets crazier with Starrcade after this. The next Starrcade is the first of the scaffold matches.
Oh,
where they're
shit,
fighting in a scaffold like 20 feet above the ring. And it's the one where like Jim Cornette falls off of the scaffolding and Big Bubba misses the catch. And like Cornette breaks his knee or something.
Yeah.
So like the NWA ain't done. But I mean, you put this next to WrestleMania though, like we were discussing earlier, and it's night and day. Like, what is happening? How are both of these things called wrestling and sports entertainment when one is dirty, aged looking, smoky, and blood everywhere, and the other one has Muhammad Ali and Liberace? Like,
yeah, I was just looking at the WrestleMania 1 card and trying to imagine, which of those matches. So I feel like the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov versus the U.S. Express could have fit on, this card, right? That's not
the closest one. Yeah.
That's probably the closest one. But then after that, it would just get a little weird. Like Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper. I mean, people would have watched and cheered for Andre the Giant versus Big John Studd, of course, as Andre would get over anywhere.
Right.
But like Ricky Steamboat versus, well, I don't know, Ricky Steamboat, he's always good. Yeah, it's a total sort of different set of expectations and aesthetics.
Yeah, I mean, they would never. I think the mentality is definitely different between the promotions here, to where I don't think the NWA would have tolerated Mr. T coming in and then also putting that like celebrity non-trained wrestler into the main event. Sure, they had Hulk Hogan carry it and stuff like that, but none of those matches look like an NWA match, except for maybe that US Express and the communist match.
Yeah, communism translates for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a different product. It's really crazy. And like I said in the previous episode, I finally really understand what like my barber growing up and like some other people that I knew that watched wrestling said, well, WWF's wrestling and WCW and NWA is wrestling. Yeah. Like, I finally understand what they're talking about. That like one presents in a much more legitimate fashion than the other. Even now, even at this point, 85, WWF wrestling looks so much different than the NWA wrestling. And it's crazy. And yeah, I can understand why WWF would eventually win, because I mean, that WrestleMania looks so much more polished and such more of a finished product. How can you How can like, if you're trying to draw in new fans, how can you not be more drawn to that than this that has a dude drawing a knife the moment the bell rings? Oh, another guy pounding the other guy in the face with a microphone. Two dudes tied together with a bull rope fighting each other. Like, how can you like, it's not as, this is much more nuanced and much more of a focused audience than what WWF. It's almost like, what's the difference between like WWE and AEW now?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking, actually, one of the sort of the most telling things is the steel cage match here is like is chain link fencing, basically, right? And like it's all rough edges and stuff. The steel cage in WrestleMania 2, when Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy get into, is there's big open squares, and it's bright blue, and it looks very like rounded off and shiny, and it's still, I mean, it's still a steel cage, right? And they're selling it as, oh, this is a bad thing. But it's a completely different experience than these guys trapped inside of like what looks like a dog kennel.
Yeah, I mean, so this is one of the things that actually arises in the main differences between the two, is that in WWF, eventually cage matches are won by escaping the cage, which makes
Right.
no damn sense. You're putting them into a cage because you don't want them to get away from each other, force them to have that fight. And that is not how it works in NWA.
Yeah, you're locking them in there so they can beat the ever-loving shit out of each other. And
Right.
maybe one of them will live to get out.
Right. Not so that one can like just pull off enough moves so that the other can like actually just walk out the door.
Yeah.
And I understand that like some of that might have been done just so that like, because you can't have King Kong Bundy or Andre the Giant climbing the goddamn blue cage.
Yeah.
But also, why is that a way to win at all? Like, just pin them, make it a pinfall inside of a cage. So like, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that like they took the edge off. Like WWF polished things and took the edges off of everything to make it much more palatable and presentable to a non like fan audience, so that like the masses could watch it. Your mom that has never seen wrestling and has just heard of that Hulk Hogan fellow that
He
everybody
seems
seems
like
to
a
love
nice
so
young
much.
man.
He seems so nice. He tells you to take your vitamins and eat your vegetables and say your prayers. He's so nice. Like that's exactly what it is that like even in 1985 WWF is polishing and rounding things off so that they can suck in a bigger audience and kill all the territories. Meanwhile, the NWA is putting on this gem of a show, but it just looks like shit.
They're leaning into the grit, as it were.
Right. The camera is shaky. The ring is dirty. And it's like the auditorium definitely seems smoky. The crowd is rough. Liberace's not there.
Everybody's bleeding.
The Rockettes aren't there. People are bleeding. Your biggest celebrity is superstar Billy Graham. It's totally a different approach to it.
As we do with every episode, we like to just take a moment to pay tribute to the men and women that we've seen in this show who are no longer with us. So our in memoriam section for Starrcade 85, The Gathering, includes backstage interviewer Johnny Weaver, outlaw Ron Bass, nature boy Buddy Landell, Don Carnodle, Yvonne Koloff, manager Paul Jones, Wahoo McDaniel, beautiful Bobby Eaton, and of course, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. So thanks for joining us, folks. We really appreciate you tuning in and listening to us ramble on about these wrestling shows. If you like what you hear, check us out on allthewrestlemanias.com. You can find us on all your favorite podcast apps. Like us, subscribe, download, do all that stuff. Leave us a nice review. If you have questions, comments, thoughts about future shows, send them to us at allthewrestlemanias@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at WrestleMania Pod. You can find our Instagram and Facebook account breakdowns to all the WrestleManias. We love hearing from you. We love your questions, your comments, your requests. So bring those on in. We're always happy to have them. So until next time, I'm your co-host, Tim Hackman.
And I'm Rich Sigwald.
Saying so long, everybody.